So, good evening from Jerusalem, and good afternoon for those of you guys who are watching in New York. I got my coffee here. What is this coffee talk with Linda Richmond? Pick a topic. The topic is truth. Absolute truth. When we say truth, what do we mean? What do we mean by truth? My friends, we live in a world where, apart from a few quadrants of society, maybe the Orthodox Jewish community, maybe certain circles in the Christian world, apart from that, I would say that at least, you could say 75, 80, maybe 90% of the Western world lives according to a system that we can call moral relativism. If those of you guys are wondering what's moral relativism is, I have my truth, you have your truth. What do they say? To each his own. And there's no such thing as objective truth. The reason that they say that is they say, well, how is it possible for any human being who doesn't see the entire picture? You know, we're not God. We are not omnipresent. We are not all-knowing, all-seeing. So how is it possible, if we're not all-knowing, all-seeing, for us to be the purveyors or hold the key to something called absolute truth? So these people will come and say, well, okay, so I have my vantage point, and this is the truth that I see, right? I grew up in such and such place, and I experienced such and such, whatever it was, and this is the truth that I see, therefore it's my truth. And then you grew up there, you know, people will tell my mother, you know, you grew up in the Soviet Union. Sorry guys, there's like a person standing here with their bicycle flashing a light directly into my face, and it's very, very bright and kind of annoying. Anyway, just kind of going to be like this. Anyway, so yeah, they'll tell people, like, you grew up here, you grew up there, this is your perspective, this is your lens, you know, you're living in your movie, right? And therefore this is your truth. But, you know, it's interesting, I always, even going back as a kid, I was always able to, you know, look at something and kind of zoom out, step back and zoom out and look at a situation or look at what's going on, whether it's in my community or in the world at large. And I was, first of all, what I try to do, I try to see something from the vantage point of the person that is experiencing whatever it is they're experiencing, or whatever it is they experienced. You know, it's interesting, I recently saw a meme that basically said something along the lines of, don't try to convince people of, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to convince them of, because they're only going to see it from their, they can't see what you're saying because they're looking at it from their lens, or from their vantage point. You know, it's like you're trying to show somebody an object on a mountain, and they're all the way down in the valley, and they can't even see it. They don't even have a telescope. They don't have a, you know, what is it called? Binoculars. They can't see it by definition. And so you're trying to show them something that's up on the peak, or, you know, on the top of Mount Everest, and they're standing on the bottom, wondering what the hell you're talking about, right? But just because they cannot see it, just because they cannot see on top of the mountain, you know, doesn't mean that you can't, you know, grab a phone or a walkie-talkie and WhatsApp or whatever, and WhatsApp them and say, well, check out what I'm seeing. So what you're seeing from your vantage point and what they can't see, that right there, what I just described, it's something called absolute truth. It's a truth that exists no matter whether or not somebody is able to see it or not. So now you guys might be asking, so how are we supposed to, at the very least, acknowledge it or identify it or at least agree on this truth? My friends, this is where the Torah comes in. This is where we have a situation, or we have basically a thing where, thousands of years ago, Hashem gave a small family, let's put it this way, an instruction manual for how to live. Why? Because we basically, up until that time, we basically didn't know how to live. We know the story of Gan Eden, Adam and Hava, and we were seduced by the snake, as it were, and the snake said, listen, this is freedom. I'm giving you freedom from your consciousness, freedom to do whatever the heck you want. What do you need these rules for? What do you need the conscience for? What do you need, this burden, these complications, the shackles? You even look back as recently as what Hitler was saying. The Jews gave the world two blemishes. One is circumcision, and the other one is a conscience. So he said, I want to release the world from the shackles of the conscience. I want to release the world. I want to give the world, quote unquote, freedom. My friend, he was trying to take the world back to the time of Gan Eden and the snake. That's exactly what he was doing. He was the snake, essentially. So along came the Jews, and we got the absolute truth from Hashem, and then, we've been trying to give it to the world in some way, some form or another, by way of example. That's really the goal here, right? So now, we have a situation that we have right now in the Western world. I think what's going on with the election, I'm not going to speak too much about it because, guys, I really don't want to get into, this kind of inflammatory... I can speak a lot about it, you guys know, right? I just don't want to get into this inflammatory vibe and we call it zach, I just don't want to get into it because it's just exhausting for me. People, end up laughing, end up scoffing, end up, just... I just don't want to get into it too much, but we see that what has been going on, even in the run-up to the election, even in the last 3.5 years, pretty much since the election of Donald Trump, we see that not only do we... his existence, his presence, put a spotlight on one main thing: the fact that we lack truth in the Western world. We have people, media outlets that come on and they say something, and they construe and manipulate a situation or an event or whatever, in every which way they want, and people believe them. Or people choose not to believe them, but many people do believe them. And unfortunately, the media knows that people are very, very busy, and people basically, how do they get their news? They get their news on their phones in a headline, right? And the headline is the headline. Most people just read the headline. They don't even read the article. They don't open up the article. They just read a headline. Trump said this. Trump is this. And people form their opinion based on what the media wrote Trump said, what the media spoon-fed to the population. My friends, you're probably wondering, again, I'm not going to get too deep into it. How do we get to this point? We got to this point because, and I can only say this from, again, my, vantage point. I remember as a kid, we came to America. I was 7 years old, talking late 80s. And I remember at that time, at the very least, there was an element of truth. You had in society this kind of zeitgeist where people, if they were left wing, they were right wing. People had the ability, especially in America, especially in the West, to come on television or in the public sphere, and they had the ability. They had the free speech. They had the power, and it was the openness to speak the truth of whatever they wanted to say. I think I mentioned this before a few times. This was when I spoke to you guys during the George Floyd thing that I remember there used to be shows, talk shows. I think it was like Maury Povich was one of them. I mean, he's still around, but back in the day, it was more popular. I think also this guy Richard Bay, Ricky Lake, these kind of people. So what they used to do, they used to invite. Not even gonna get to Jerry Springer. That's a whole other thing. So they used to invite people, people like Al Sharpton on the show. I think Jackie Mason had his own show as well. You guys can go. I think they took it down on YouTube, which is really sad. But he invited like people like, I think there was another show called Morton Downey Jr. Show, not Robert Downey, Morton Downey Jr. Show. They invited like it was like Al Sharpton and then like a KKK Grand Wizard and this person and that person, and people would just sit at the shows, the guests, and they would just hash it out. They would just express their feelings. It's like, tell me how you really feel. That's what they just call the show. Tell me how you really feel. And we had, and for the first time ever, we had people were given a platform, even if it's people whose opinions you don't like. These people were given a platform to speak their mind, and we're talking about like real racists and real race mongers, or so to speak, a person like Al Sharpton, or whatever it is. And we had the MS, we had the truth, we had people being able to hear the truth from other people, the truth of what people really think, and being able to absorb it, be able to speak about it and debate about it like adults, not like little children on college campuses, like what we have today. And I'll tell you guys, I think the reason for that is because even at that time, America on some level was, even in the media, even in popular culture, was run according to some form or some level or some version, let's say, of just basic biblical principles. So you had basically a standard. Society was guided by a standard of what truth actually is. And over the years, I think maybe pretty much since the last 30 years, I don't know when it began. Maybe it began in the late 90s, maybe in the early 2000s, where, and I actually remember this. I remember I was in the underground music scene in New York, club scene, house music. And I remember, again, the people that are mainstream in the Democratic Party today, or in the left-wing side of the political world today, at that time they were in the fringe. But so this is, for me, listening to these people, all of their, again, without getting too much into it, I'm just going to give you guys just an example. Listening to all of their, critical race theory and all of their stuff that's like mainstream today, that you hear on college campuses, that you hear in popular culture and whatever it is, that stuff I was hearing from people that I knew in the music scene who were considered fringe. They were considered on the fringe of the fringe of the fringe of their party. And on top of that, obviously, these people are anti-Israel, they're anti-Semitic, and just straight up openly anti-Semitic. Forget about Israel, just stop anti-Semitic. Anti-Israel, pro anything that's like, Marxism, communism, what have you, Bolshevism, whatever you guys see today, basically, coming out of the Democratic Party, with people like AOC, Ilhan Omar, whatever it is. So, I saw these people, and I was talking to them, so we're talking about, like, again, the early 2000s, and I realized that, like, Bush was president, and I remember Bush was very into, he was always talking about God and just, he was an evangelical Christian. He's not a reformed Christian, like he was a born again Christian, a person who kind of woke up to his faith later in life, I guess a Baal Tshuva, if you will. And I remember these people writing on message boards, these music heads. I remember they were writing like, oh, this family, every time I read the term family values, it makes me want to puke. And I'm reading this and I'm just like, what is wrong with these people? There's something, like, there's something wrong with them. There's something, I don't know if it's drugs. I don't know if it's education. I don't know if it's like some professor got to them. I mean, I realized later it was something that happened to them on campus. They picked up a couple of books. They picked up a couple of books written by some, you know, I don't know, commie writer or something, and that's it. And on top of that, I noticed these people. They all had this one thing in common, where a lot of these people, they lived in New York, and they all came from families in Middle America, in the Midwest. And I guess now, looking back, I have a term that I can use for them. I can call them off the derech Christians. People who grew up in Christian families, and for whatever reason they became sour on the whole thing. I guess saw maybe some stuff in Christianity that wasn't to their liking, and I guess they started questioning things, and little by little they just basically decided, well, you know what, I'm just going to throw out the baby out with the bathwater. This whole thing is evil. This is an evil ideology. This is not the way to live. I'm going to live according to the ways of, whatever. Whatever, anything goes. That's the way I'm going to live. That's the way these people decided to live. And to them, anything goes. Again, back to the serpent. Anything goes equals freedom. This is what they think. They think that anything goes equals freedom. This person is like this, we have to accept them. This person is like that, we have to accept them. My friends, I'll tell you again, I accept everybody. But that doesn't mean that I approve of them. And this is where Western society is. This is why it's collapsing, because people are conflating the concepts of approval versus acceptance. If you have a friend, or if you know somebody who's doing something, or living in a way that you, either based on your personal principles or based on your, let's say, religious principles, you don't necessarily agree with, but you can say to them, listen, man, I accept you as a human being. I'm not gonna, I don't dehumanize you. I don't objectify you. To me, you're a human being. You're my friend. You're my family member. It's all good. It's all love. Like, fine. But at the same time, if we live in a free society, we should have the freedom to express to them, hey, even so much as, by the way, according to the Torah, what you're doing is wrong. I accept you. It's all good. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not ISIS. I'm not, the Iranian Ayatollah. I'm not going to throw you off a rooftop. I'm not going to chop your head off. I'm not going to send you to prison. But just know, there's something wrong, right? And I should be able to express that. But we can't even do that. We're in a place in society where we can't even do that. Because me just sitting here like this with you guys, talking to you live, expressing what I'm expressing, or even hinting at what I'm hinting at, somebody can come along and say, well, you're inciting, I don't know, you may be inciting people to violence against a certain, group of people. I mean, it's like, I don't even know what to say. I'm like speechless, right? But my friends, it really all goes back to, little by little, the concept of absolute truth. Society basically started ridiculing people who believe in God. They started really ridiculing people who believe in the Torah, with the exception, or in the Tanakh, with the exception of Muslims, because that's a whole other conversation, why they don't ridicule them. Mainly because of fear, mainly because they're afraid of the backlash, which is actually, if you guys look at Europe, this is exactly what's happening. And there's a deep reason for that. Because at the end of the day, excuse me, at the end of the day, again, I think I mentioned this to you guys before, that you have, the whole concept of Esav and Ishmael, and Ishmael is Esav's father-in-law, and Esav is very respectful of his elders, of his father-in-law. He is known, one of the things he's known for is Kibbud Abba. He's known for a lot of things, but one of the things is respect for the father. That's why you guys see Trump, total respect for his father. I mean, he's the epitome of that, right? And so, yeah, so I guess that part of Western society, even if they, they take the Bible and they throw it away, even if they take every biblical principle, everything, and they throw it in the garbage, they're never going to go against, Islamic society. They're never going to do that. But what they will do is go, against Israel. They could go against the Jews in a very kind of thinly veiled way, roundabout way. Today, for example, guys, you know, I don't have to tell you, it's not in vogue to be an anti-Semite, but it's okay to be anti-Israel. You can use hating Israel as a vehicle for your inherent Jew hatred. It's funny. I was watching this comedian Tim Dillon, and he's talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He goes, this girl, she sorry, she's sitting around and she's one day she claimed she was a bagel. He meant like she claimed she was Jewish, and it's true. She went to some Hanukkah party, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm descendant of Maranos and whatever." And then the next day, he kind of took it to the next level. He's like, "Yeah." And then the next day, she goes and reads Mein Kampf with Ilhan Omar. Obviously she's not doing that, but like the point is like you have this woman who's like, on the one hand she's like, "Oh, I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish." On the other hand, she's like BDS on Israel, or canceling her appearances in, there was an event with, what's his name, Yitzhak Rabin, that she canceled her appearance. Yeah, so, my friends, listen, over the past 30 years, we basically have had an erosion of an understanding of um, absolute truth, or just the acknowledgement that there is that truth. And now we have nothing but just people running around talking about my truth. Yeah, you have to speak your truth, your truth. This is your truth. To each his own. This guy believes this guy believes that. And it's all valid, it's all that. How about, no, it's not. How about there's some ideas are better than others? How about this idea is a, how about this religion is BS? Whatever religion you're talking. How about maybe we should sit down, have a debate, and see you know, what ideologies stand up to scrutiny and what don't, what works and what doesn't. Because, and right now, what I'm seeing, my friends, is the fact that there's a group of people who's saying, well, our ideology works, despite evidence to the contrary, despite the fact that, 100 million people died as a result, and in 1 century, not, I love how, like, a lot of people come and say, oh, religion, it killed so many people, what do they say? Oh yeah, like there have been so many wars over religion. The most ever people died over religion. Actually, no, 100 million people died over one ideology called communism, just in the 20th century alone, or what communism became, whatever it intended to become. I don't even know, but no, nor do I care. As a former Soviet citizen, I'm telling you what it became, or what the people that put it in, so to speak, tried to put it into action, and what ended up happening as a result of that. So, where was I? Yeah. So, an erosion of MS, the inability to speak about different ideas and, hold them to the fire without people getting offended, or, I don't know, calling you a racist, or I don't know, what is it, bigot, supremacist, misogynist, whatever. And my friends, this is where we are in society. And so now, we have a situation, my friends. I don't want to speak about the details of what I think about what's happening with the election. I will just tell you, my friends, just by looking at everything that's happening, just by looking at the fact, and I don't even think anybody else brought this up. I don't even think some of the rabbis I've been listening to, who I'm actually going to, echo or kind of parrot it right now. But I'll add one more thing, my own thing, that neither of them said, was that if you guys consider the fact that this whole situation with the COVID began on Purim, right, or just after Purim, and we started wearing masks. What do we do on Purim? We wear masks. So we took off our masks. We put on our masks, and we put on our masks, physical masks, and our virtual masks came off. And now we know how everybody feels. Now we know how our roommates feel, how our husbands and wives feel, how they're stuck at home. They can't go escape to work or outside. Everybody had to be at home and deal with the stuff, each other's stuff. Okay. And then we went through the summer, and then all of a sudden there was one side on the political spectrum that said, "Oh, wait a minute. Hey guys, we need to have mail-in ballots because people can't go to the polls because it's dangerous." Even though most people did go to the polls physically, some people didn't. Right? And again, without getting into too much detail, we understand mathematically and statistically that there is a problem. We understand that. We understand that if you have a situation where one candidate is leading another candidate by 12 points, where 75 or 80% of the votes in that particular state have been tallied, it is a math. My friends, I'm a math person. I used to be on Wall Street. My parents are both applied math majors, graduates, masters, like computer scientists. It is a statistical and mathematical. It's not an improbability. It is an impossibility that the person who's down by 12 points, with 80% of the people reporting, I don't care. I mean, it's impossible. It is not possible. Every mathematician and statistician worth their salt, even if they're left-wing, will tell you that. And you can go across the board to other states. What is this kind of stuff happened in 5 different states, and we were watching this stuff live, real time, so to speak, with the exception of the, when everybody was sleeping after Election Day. So we don't know what was going. We couldn't watch what was going on. But basically, my friends, we understand that something is afoot. Something is happening right now, and we're coming up on Hanukkah. So now you have the time between starting Purim and Hanukkah. Both of these holidays, I was telling my friends that both of these holidays in Jewish liturgy, these are the holidays known as the Nisim, the miracles. These are the holidays that we say in our Sidurim, in our prayer books. We say Ala Nisim. It's two different Ala Nisims, but we say Ala Nisim for both. One, Purim, is a miracle that happened by way of, we call it a miracle, right? But it's a miracle that happened, so to speak, by way of what's called our hishtadlut, our human effort, or what we think is human effort, but it was, all of these things that on the surface were natural law, but then, we were left to our devices to work them out, to figure them out, but we understand that Hashem made this whole thing happen, right? To where the person who wanted to, who prepared the gallows for us ended up hanging with the very gallows he prepared for the Jewish people. But it was a nes, right? So a lot of discussions among the rabbis. How was it a nes if we did it by our own hand? If we, all this human effort, all this ishtadlus, whatever. Separate conversation. But and then we go to Hanukkah, right? Kind of the same thing. You had armies, and we had to do a hishtadlus. We had to fight. Not only that, it was a battle within the nation. It was actually a civil war before it was a war against the Greek Seleucid army. The miracle was actually not, it was the oil, right? The miracle was the oil that lasted for the Beit HaMikdash. My friends, what does the Beit HaMikdash have to do with anything? What does the temple have to do with anything? Well, my friends, again, you could say whatever you want about Trump, how he talks, how he walks, how he looks, how he suntans, how he combs his hair. In the words of Ben Affleck from Boiler Room, tell me you don't like my flippin' necktie. But don't tell me you can't, put $2,000 together. You know what I mean? It's like, tell Trump you don't like his flippin' necktie. Okay? But there's no denying the way that this person came in and basically, out of nowhere, I mean, it wasn't completely out of nowhere. And I'll add one more thing at the end. At the end of this video, I'll tell you guys something interesting. And comes in and he goes, okay, moving to Jerusalem. I know all the other presidents promised to do this. I'm moving the embassy to Jerusalem, the American embassy. You know, I'm recognizing that this belongs to Jewish people. I am shutting down anything that the PA does, Palestinian Authority, which is corrupt and is hurting the Palestinian people. Shutting down whatever they do. We're going to make some deals with the Arab world. I'm going to squeeze the Iranian regime, not the Iranian people, but the Iranian regime, the Ayatollahs, until they, you know, squeeze the life out of them until they're gone, until they can't survive, until they're dead. I'm going to take the Chinese to task. I'm going to take the EU to task. A lot of stuff. He did a lot of stuff, my friends, and a lot of people are upset because they've had financial interest in these things continuing, you know, being perpetuated. And my friends, I mean, like, unless you are blind, you have to look at this again. Even if you don't like the guy, as like something biblical. If you're a Jew, even if you're not religious, you gotta look at all this stuff and like you say to yourself, "Wow, I mean, this is biblical stuff." So, my friends, now we understand that the forces that are against Trump, whether you're talking about the media for the past 3.5 years, that are throwing, it's not even the kitchen sink, it's the entire hardware store at Trump with Russia and Ukraine and all this fabricated nonsense that we know, you know, that these people themselves did. And it's funny, they've been saying the whole time, oh, it's a fraudulent, you know, he fraudulently got into office. Meanwhile, there was I just described the fraud, again, without getting too deep into it. And every media outlet, headline, unfounded claims, and then hammer away, you know, like the newspaper Pravda in the Soviet Union, which is called Truth. Speaking of truth, right? Pravda. So, my friends, we understand that this is biblical, and we understand that, yeah, there's just, it's really the forces of Hashem versus the forces that are not with Hashem. And unfortunately, I'll say, I have some friends who are kind of getting lost in the middle of this whole thing, in terms of like they still think, and they're getting sucked into thinking that the people who are going against Trump, in particular the people in the Democratic Party who are vehemently anti, they think that they're the good guys, and they don't realize that they're not. And I was just telling my friends that, you know, I'm from the former Soviet Union, and in order for me to tell people or convey to people who never lived in it, who never experienced it, who don't have parents who lived in it and experienced it, that they're telling you that all the stuff that you're seeing from the media and from the Democrats today is what you saw in the Soviet Union, the tactics, the methods, the vernacular, the lashon, as we say in Yiddish, the methods, the way of being, the modus operandi is the same to a T. There's no way they can see it unless they choose to see it, to believe what we're saying, or, you know, or they won't. I mean, because it's like, again, it's like explaining, coming up to a blind person and telling them, okay, let me tell you about the color blue or color red. What? I'm blind. What are you talking about? It's not possible. So, my friends, I realized that it's not possible, and the only thing left to do is really just, you know, so to speak, sit back and watch the show that's about to unfold, my friends. Because, my friends, I'll tell you, this is not even politics anymore. This is something. This is actually like a Megillah, if you will, that might be added when all is said and done. It may even be added. Zat Hashem, when Mashiach comes, he'll probably add it to some, like, he'll canonize it. He'll add it to some one of the books of the Tanakh. I don't know, or something. Make it a separate Megillah or a separate something, Sefer. I don't know, separate book. Like, we have a book of Maccabees that was never canonized, but it's a book that we read about the, you know, what happened in Hanukkah, whatever it is, right? So, I don't know. I'm just looking at what's happening now, and it's really something to behold. And yeah, my friends. So, to me, it's no surprise that Hanukkah's coming up. It's interesting because the electoral college is supposed to meet on December 14th, which is smack in the middle of Hanukkah. Right now we're still in the month of Heshvan, the Hebrew month of Heshvan, which is the full name of the month is Mar Heshvan, which means bitter, right? But once we come out of Heshvan and we enter Kislev is when we enter the light, and it's the light, so to speak, the embers. Now I'm getting into Kabbalah and Hasidus with you guys. It's the embers that begin to warm us in these dark nights, in these short days and long nights, and they illuminate the darkness. And then they prepare us for what is about to happen in Hanukkah, the light of Hanukkah, and even in Tevet, which is like just total, kind of coldness of winter. You have those 2 days where it's the brightest lights of Hanukkah, the last 2 days of Hanukkah, and you have, the miracle is like fully realized, right? So my friends, I'm not looking at this from politics. I can probably sit here and I can tell you all the legal, I have friends that message me today, so what do you think is going to be? What is the next steps? What is this? What is that? Legal, this, recount, technical things, people are sore losers, they don't want to accept. I've had all kinds of conversations with my friends the past, 48 hours, since Motei Shabbat, or 24 hours, about this whole situation. My friends, I will just tell you, the best thing to do is to look at everything and just say, this is a scene that is being played out in a play written by the greatest screenwriter of all time, Hashem. And my friends, tomorrow is the beginning of, I guess it's not the final act. The final act will probably be something else, which I won't say. Not Mashiach, but something before that. But this is the beginning of a big, what they call in opera, crescendo. Right? It's not the finale, but it is a crescendo. And there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of arguments, a lot of back and forth, a lot of people scoffing, a lot of people laughing, a lot of people lying, a lot of people manipulating. My friends, I'll tell you, you can get lost in it, you can get exhausted, you can become worn out. I saw that with myself for the past couple of days, and I realized it's pointless. And you just have to rise above it. You have to look at everything from a completely different perspective. And once you do that, once you tap into that, everything becomes, I don't want to say crystal clear, because it only becomes crystal clear once, everything kind of, once the story, I guess, plays itself out. But at the very least, you'll be at peace, and you'll be calm, and you'll know that everything's gonna be okay. That's really it, my friends. And just know that the Emet, at the end of the day, the Emet, you can't. Sheker, lies, have no legs to stand on. It's like a stool with two legs. It doesn't have, it doesn't have anything to stand on. Eventually, the truth is so powerful, it contains such powerful light that it has no choice but to emerge from, I don't want to say the darkness, from being hidden. Right now, the truth is hidden from us, my friends. And it will be revealed. It will be revealed. Everything will be revealed. And, the people who think that they hold a key to so to speak, the future of humanity and the truth, they are being given, how should I put this? They're being built up so they can be torn down, unfortunately. But not for the sake of being torn down. I think I was watching Rabbi Weisberg today. I forget his name. Weisberg. He said it's not for the sake of them being torn down. It's for the sake of them being, I guess, spiritually purified. It's like a humbling experience to know that whatever you thought was, so to speak, in your favor, is it's not only not in your favor, it's also a lie. It's also a lie, and it's criminal, what was done. And my friends, what's today's date? The 8th? Got about a little over a month, and I'm not worried about it. I'm just very impatient, as I know many of you are, but I'm not worried about it. I'm really not. My mother called me the other day and she said, how could we let America turn into Soviet Union? I never thought I would say this. I never thought I would see this. I said, listen, remember Purim? Take Purim and take Hanukkah and put it in a blender, and you have a whole new drink. This is what we have now. This is what we're going to have. And it's interesting, my friends, because B'ezrat Hashem, in a week from Tuesday, I'm flying to the States to see my family. And I'll be there for a month, and I'll get to watch this wonderful off-Broadway production in all its glory, up close and personal. And my friends, with that said, I actually said that I'm not going to comment anymore on the election, but I will speak to you guys. How should I put this? Okay, let me rephrase. I'm not going to write any more posts on my personal Facebook wall about the election, but I will be speaking to you guys via this outlet. And again, whenever I speak to you guys, I'm gonna try to keep it within the theme of what I just spoke about today. Again, because it's not about politics, it's not about my side versus your side, left, right, Democrat, Republican. It's about something bigger than, we clearly understand that it's bigger than that. And we have to stay in that realm, because the minute we leave that realm, that's when we devolve, or we devolve, and we sink into just nonsense and having back and forth arguments with people and all this kind of stuff, and it doesn't, it's exhausting, and it just sucks, drains your energy, and it doesn't do anybody any good, both the people you're arguing with and also for yourself, because you're talking to a wall, right? So, alright, my friends, it's been very, very real. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will catch you on the flip side. Live from Yerushalayim, it's a half. Beautiful. There's our cousins. By the way, this is a neighborhood called Abu Tor. Half Jewish, half Arab. Some UN people live here. Oh, our wonderful friends at the UN. Who have been taken to task the last 4 years by the one they call Carrot. Like I said, my friends, love him, hate how he talks, hate how he walks, hate everything about him. But if you love Israel, and you deny that he's your friend, something's wrong with you. Laila Tov.